And this is actually going to be our last news story of the day. And it's a slow news story. We've had a lot of kind of like non-stories about things that aren't happening or may be happening or may not be happening. The cheating thing, I think, was really, if it was a normal news day, really the only thing we'd probably really cover, especially given the update of the Vita story. But this one's about the Division 2, and this one made the rounds over the weekend. This is from Robert Ramsey over at Push Square. It says the Division 2 director asks for thoughts on a single-player story-driven Division game. It says the Division is one of those properties that has an interesting concept at its heart, but because it's a co-op enabled experience, the story and characters are never really given room to breathe. But what if the Division wasn't an always online, multiplayer-focused series? What if there was a single-player story-driven spinoff? This very idea was presented to the Division 2 creative director Julien Gherity on Twitter. Interestingly, Gherity retweeted the idea along with one word, quote, thoughts, end quote. Obviously, it's important not to read too much into this. A single tweet certainly doesn't mean that there's a single player Division game in the works right now, but the fact that the idea is getting this kind of attention is enough to raise an eyebrow. Adding fuel to the admittedly quite small fire, Gherity adds, quote, apparently not something people are violently against, end quote, followed by a smiley face. Again, intriguing. Again, this is not a news story. It is a guy who is connected to a game, floating an idea for a game that I'm sure has been floated around their meeting rooms and creative brainstorming sessions in the past. But it makes you think, right? Like, I'm a fan of the Division. I've enjoyed it. I think the world and the premise behind the world is interesting. But I think that having an interesting world and telling interesting stories are two really different things, and they're kind of difficult to pull off, right? And so I think what makes the Division is the loot grind, is the playing with friends. And while there have been good stories told in the Tom Clancy universe, I don't think there's been very many of them. And so I don't know. I'm of the mind, like, if it's something that they want to do, more power to them. But to me, like, just give me more of the Division, and I'm going to be totally fine with it. And there are other games that exist that can give me that single player experience, right? And they're also working on like a Division movie, some things like that. They're going to be taking place in the universe as well. And so we're going to get a glimpse more of the character driven stuff. But I don't know, creating a good game from like a loot grind, shared world shooter perspective is a lot different than making a good game that is single player story driven, right? So I don't know. I think just stick with the formula that's gotten you to where you are. And I also understand that I'm probably in the minority here of this, and that's totally fine if you disagree. But tell me of a Tom Clancy game, in your opinion, that has a really good story. You know? There have been games that have had really fun campaigns. I think of like the Rainbow Six Vegas games. Let's see, what else? Like the Ghost Recon Advanced Warfighter games had really good, but those were like squad based, right? I think Rainbow Six Vegas was squad based as well. So yeah, I don't look at a Tom Clancy game and think, man, those are great story driven games. Or those games have the potential for a great story. They're always put against these interesting backdrops, some of them more believable than others. But so yeah, I am a nay on this. I'm not violently against it though. If it's something they want to do, more power to them, and I'm open to see them try a single player experience, But just historically with Tom Clancy games, it's not really something that we've seen. But then again, we hadn't really seen historically a Tom Clancy game thrive as a competitive online multiplayer shooter. And we have Rainbow Six Siege, right? So there's room to be proven wrong, and I am totally okay with being proven wrong. So